Good morning, I'm Randy Anderson with AquaRecycle. This segment is going to talk about the daily maintenance required to keep your AquaRecycle system working in top performance. It's basically primarily checks. We just want to make sure the system is operating properly. You can get a lot of the information now with our new touchscreen displays. If you touch into the Savings Report button, it'll give you an hourly update. In this case, I actually like to use a stylus to look at it. But you can scroll up and down and take a look and see how your AquaRecycle system has been performing. It'll give you the time the data was taken. The data was taken. The first column is the amount of recycled water you used that hour. The second column is the amount of fresh water you used that hour. And the third column is actually the percentage of recycled water that you've used in the washing process. And if you scroll up and down, you can take a look at the day's performance. You should typically be in the 60% range on the low end, and then on the 70 to 80% range on the high end. And if you see that you're consistently down well below that, then you've got a problem you need to address. But if everything else looks fine and you're processing water properly, then the rest of the checks is just to make sure the system is running like you'd expect. The process pump processes your wastewater. The only thing you need to check on it is that it comes on and off as it's expected. It's controlled by the high level flow switch in the leg tank like we talked about in previous segments. And then either by a pressure switch if we're feeding washing machines directly with an eco line, or by the fill float in your final holding tank on a premium line. If the pump is coming on and off like you'd expect, then it's working fine. The other two things you're going to check on your control skid are your ozone systems. The one on your left is the wastewater ozone line. It's processing water from the leg tank. Water flows through it, up through the injector, which sucks the ozone in, and then you have a section of clear tubing. Just make sure that you're getting bubbles in your clear tubing, and then this water flows right back in the leg tank. On the right side is your other ozone pump. In this case, we're actually using the laundry's pump to pump clean water from their final holding tank through the ozone system and then back into their holding tank. But on most systems, you'll see a separate pump here as well that's processing water from the final holding tank and ozonating it. And again, it's the same thing. You need to look and make sure that there's bubbles flowing. Every unit has ozone bulbs, but the number of bulbs is dependent on the size of the system. On your daily checks, I'd like you to check and feel that each ozone bulb is working. It's simply an ultraviolet light bulb inside the plastic casing, and all you got to do to check and make sure they're working is to feel them, and they'll be warm. If they're cold, the ozone bulb is probably blown out and you need to replace it. If multiple ones are cold, it's more likely that you got a breaker or in this case, a GFI plug that's tripped. Reset your GFI plug and see if all your ozone bulbs happen to come back on. If that doesn't correct the problem, then there's a breaker for the ozone system inside the control panel. Check your ozone breaker. But typically, you find one out at a time. And if you find multiple ones out, then there's an electrical problem. The rest of the maintenance occurs at the lint shaker and the ultraviolet system. The lint shaker takes out about 90% of the total waste stream out of your wastewater. It's primarily lint. And so it needs to be monitored every day. There's a screen on the top of it that I'd like to take a look at, make sure there's no holes or rips in it. If there are, replace the screen immediately. If there's not, then the only thing else you need to do on a daily basis is clean out the lint bucket. Pull the blue tube out, pull the basket itself out, it'll be full of lint, dump it in the garbage can, put it back in the bucket, and put the tube back in. Now, if you fail to do this on a daily basis and your lint happens to build up, it'll slowly build up in the tube, and it'll either pull the tube off and fall off and have a big mess of lint all over the place, or it'll start to back up into the lint shaker itself. Either way, the system won't stop operating, you just got a bigger mess to clean up. So we recommend you do this at least once a day. The last part of the maintenance you need to do every day is on the ultraviolet filter. Your ultraviolet filter's job is to disinfect the wastewater, and so we need to check it daily to make sure it's operational. Again, much like the ozone bulbs, it's just an ultraviolet light that shines through. So only thing I need you to check is just to make sure the light is on, and there's a little crystal on the top with a blue glow. Just make sure the glow is on. If it's not on, you need to check the UV bulb itself or check the breaker that controls it. In this case, much like the ozone bulbs, it's on the GFI plug. So typically if it's out, in this case both of them are out, it's going to be a GFI issue. Just push the reset on the button. The only other maintenance on your UV system is to wipe it once a week. And that's simply a function of pulling out its onboard wiper. Undo the clip, pull the wiper handle out, push it back in, And I typically do it 3 or 4 times just to clean off the quartz sleeve. How this unit works, just for a quick explanation, is there's a quartz sleeve right in the middle of the unit, and the light bulb is inside the quartz sleeve to keep it dry. The water flows around the outside of that quartz sleeve, down the chamber, and then out the outlet side of it. So what you're doing is wiping that quartz sleeve so that the light can shine through and get into the water.